Hi everyone. I would like to talk to you today about a interesting um, topic, rather interesting to me. Hopefully, you find it interesting. It's called philosophy of law. Um, so, philosophy of law is a jurisprudence, and philosophy of law deals how do we approach the law, what does the law mean, and what it should mean. So philosophy of law tries to address these questions. What is a law? What does a law mean? Should we have morality in law? Should law be um, influenced by morality? And or should we just totally separate from the moral values and moral things that we consider that we hold dear to ourselves or anything or similar to that? Um, So the question, I can't certainly say what is a law because there's been many definitions, and I'm not going to spend in defining the law. There's been many different thinkers and philosophers and jurists that um, try to define law, and some of them, we have John Austin, we have H.L.A. Hart, Lon Fuller, um, all these different, we even had all Wendell Holmes, the Supreme Court justice during 1930s, and that defines the law. Um, it says, he says in a funny way, he says you have to look at law from the bad man's perspective. Um, and if you look at the law from bad man's perspective, you can create a law that would try to um, uh, kind of deter or eliminate the behaviors that bad men normally takes. I also would like to talk to you about um, the morality in law because that's a major thing in law. And morality is, when I say morality, I'm talking about in general. Morality could be religion, it could be culture, it could be what a certain society holds to be true, and of course that changes as from generation to generation. Sometimes it changes often than just from generation to generation. But philosophy of law is that uh, what is called a legal system in place. So the legal system that we had in early, let's say in the founding of this country, was we had Declaration of Independence. Now that kind of is a legal document, but at the same time it's not, because it was just declaring separation from one country to the other, and it had to go through revolution in order for that to fully become into force. It had to, war had to occur technically to separate from British. So that became more the spirit rather than the law of the revolution. Um, but at the same time, if we look the law as then when Constitution was created, well, the first Constitution, Republican Constitution, or a Constitution that respected religion, freedom of speech, and that respected all these different stuff that you can buy property and pursue, all that was recognized in the Constitution. However, of course, we know historically that if you were African American or any other minority, for that reason, you were not able to own property. And I'm not going to go into that. Well, that is another aspect. That what is the meaning of the law? Rule of the law if it applies to one person and not to the other. That's a different kind of. It's similar, but it's a little different subject from to what we understand and know. Um, the thing is that about Constitution and the Grand Convention that happened in 1787, where all of a sudden all these founding fathers and different political figures gather in Philadelphia from like May to September in 1787 to build a working law and federal law, especially federal constitution. So, um, the legal system has all these different stratifications, not stratifications, but these different levels. You know, we have a local level, we have a municipal level, then we have a federal level, then we have a state level, then you have a Supreme Court, and you have Supreme Court of this state, and you have a Supreme Court of the United States. All these different configurations, and then we have a circuit courts that are federal courts, and then we have a circuit courts that are also state courts. I mean, you name it. Family law, criminal law, torts, all these law, you know, wills and trusts and all that that come into place under the law and the philosophy of law. But the problem is the philosophy of law is approach how we interpret the law and how we're going to implement the law. So if it's been argued, like let's say something that I might want to go into a little bit is a Nazi legal system. Nazi legal system, is it a legal system? That's a question. First of all, because it's a Nazi, because it's totally separated from morality. You know, the programs, the discrimination against Jewish population, the final solution, and all that. But if we define legal system as a system that is backed by force, then it's a legal system, right? Because if you don't have a force to enforce the laws and follow the laws, and if the judge implements a rule and nobody is to follow it, then what is the meaning of that? So if we are going to define the law as a that has force behind it, meaning, as I believe even Orlando Holmes argued this point, you know, you have to have a force. Even Lone Fuller, J.L.A. Hart. J.L.A. Hart argues, well, it's a legal system for Nazi legal system, is that it is a system since it's backed by the force, and it is legal because it's backed by the authority that has means and ways to implement that law. We find it totally on that it's not moral, but yet is it the law? And these are the questions that philosophy of law tries to answer the question. And many people will say if it's not moral, then it's not law. But at the same time, what is moral here, let's say in state of Illinois, might not be moral in the state of Wisconsin. So morality can influence the law, but I don't think it should be the norm or the principle that we should follow. You have to look at the law from a different angles and to interpret the law. You know, like for example, we have a federal law, and then federal law, the United States Congress has certain powers over certain things that happen in the state that might be defined by commerce clause, for example, and so these are many different things that either maybe sometimes law contradicts one another. You know, one law says do A, another says do B, and it all becomes kind of convoluted in a legal jargon and all that. So you have to brush up, and you have to do a lot of studying. Now, I am not an attorney, so I just want to make sure that I'm just voicing my opinion. I'm not giving any kind of legal advice or anything or any issue. To me, what is interesting about the law is that, first of all, we cannot define law. Same thing with literature. What is literature? What is law? You can find many definitions. We can sit here all day and discuss what is law. But we can define medicine. Like, we know what is a medicine. We can certainly define that, and we don't have to spend all day defining. But philosophy of law and what is law or literature is really, there's so many definitions. The only thing is that what is considered legal in this country might be legal in another, or what is considered in this legal state, it might be legal in another state. And what influences these differences? You know, and so we can look at the culture under which this law is being is implemented, or which thing. If we are looking at for example, the enforcement of the immigration law, we have conservative states who cooperate with federal authorities when it comes to and implement federal laws. And then we have democratic states, that create and shelter and protect illegal aliens, right? And then the question becomes, then what is the rule of the law if one state can say, well, we want to protect the aliens, and another state says, well, no, we want to round them up. And then, but the federal law says we have to implement these policies. So this is why these contradictions or these unenforceability and enforceability in one state versus the other, it should not be mitigated by political bodies or apolitical apparatuses that operate within the state or federal level. If you want to change the law, then you should lobby. You can change the law. You can present the bill. You can lobby a community. You can send it to the state legislature and then work through maybe even to the federal. But the moment that we say we're going to apply that rule, but then we're not going to apply that rule, then we can't pick and choose. Then what is the rule of law? And this is where philosophy of law comes into question. What is the meaning of the law? Now, it's impossible to enforce every single law in every single instance and place. There is no that kind of force or that kind of means or even financial means for state to enforce every single law. But there are laws that, that's why we have laws, we should follow them. But at the same time, people should, we cannot pick and choose. Oh, today I'm going to stop at this stop sign, but I'm not going to stop tomorrow. I mean, that's dangerous. So at the same time, and this is how certain federal and state governments operate. Oh, today we're going to enforce this immigration law, but then tomorrow we're not going to enforce that immigration law. If it's the law, then these are the rules, and let the courts then settle it and debate and all that stuff. So I think Constitution as a Constitution, it is a legal system. Yes, we can say the United States Constitution is influenced by morality because it has given so many freedoms to so many different cultures, religions, even immigrants, even undocumented immigrants, certain rights. Not all of them. I would argue not all of them, because the fact that you are not legally in this country, or you're doing something, you don't have to be legal, or you're doing something illegal, and yes, you have certain rights in terms of criminal law. And then, of course, and then it depends. If you are in a democratic state, then you are this, and if you are in a Republican state, then you are that. And then we have political influences into our law, and that's a key subject that I would like to talk about. And the law should not be political. The law should be, this is the law, and we should interpret it regardless. And so yes, some people, I can say this is the law, and some people interpret it the way they want it, the way it fits their political, cultural affiliations and all that, and bend the law backwards to fit that. For example, Roe versus Wade, there's nothing in the Constitution like right to privacy. The founding fathers think of the right to privacy to Roe versus Wade, but the law has been bent over backwards to fit that description. Now that I know that maybe we can find a different rule that would justify, for example, abortion, that would, justify contraception, but right to privacy was taught, at least the way it was understood, that you can be safe in your own home. Nobody should come in without a warrant, or should follow you or watch you or do anything. Now, right to privacy in terms of the body, what's going to happen to your body, that's a kind of a far-fetched goal. But here is what I'm going to stop here, because yes, there's so much I can talk about philosophy of law. It's one of my favorite subjects. But for right now, I will stop, and I'll pick up this little more as we go along. Thanks.